to capture as many as we can. But today, we're going to pick up the story of September 1992. We're going back, and like much of the summer, it appears that the creative team, Arn, is once again trying to figure out what they want to do with you and Bobby. They can't figure it out through this era. But we're going to talk a little bit about Clash of the Champions 20, and that takes place September the 2nd, Arn. And this was a big one, dude, because it was built all around the celebration of 20 years of wrestling on TBS. And it was recorded at Center Stage. It was in front of 500 fans. And the show opens with none other than Gordon Soley, the voice of your childhood. And he's speaking to Andre the Giant. And, man, they had a lot of clips of some highlights of wrestling over the 20 years. They had clips of Bill Watts and Dusty, King Kong Bundy, the Spoiler, and then the Nature Boy, of course. And then all of a sudden we see WCW champ Ron Simmons arrive with his wife, and the WCW executives are followed in on for this presentation. Bill Watts, Hank Aaron arrived together, which is interesting as we look back now. You have Bill Shaw, Bob Dew, Jim Barnett, and even Bruno Sammartino is in attendance for this show. But before we get to the actual events of this Clash, Arn, WCW obviously has a lot invested in this show because of this big deal, this focus on TBS in 20 years and the 2 decades. And the Clash, man, it was always a major event. I love the Clash of Champions. The music, the belts with the lightning bolts, that opening introduction, just such a fond memory for me. But again, you're at Center Stage, a major event, 500 fans in attendance. What did you think about all this? Do you remember? Let's start here. Do you remember this event, Arn, and the whole theatrics, the production of it?
As we watch the clips, I'm sure I will remember it more so. 500 people doesn't sound like a lot, but when you jam them in that small studio, it was running over.
Yeah.
And you know, enthusiastic as they could possibly be. A lot of dignitaries. It was a big deal. 20 years of, you know, on the same station, same product. That's a pretty good run, I would say.
No, I totally agree, man. I love the way they incorporated the history of anytime that nostalgia, and you can tap into the respect of those that went before you, and remembering that, man, it's all the feels. We have a question that came in from one of our listeners this week. This is the first question of the week, Arn. It's from Josh Harveth, and he says, at Clash 20, did Turner executives really throw a black tie party to celebrate 20 years of wrestling at TBS? And if so, were the boys able to partake? And what was Arn's thoughts on Andre's appearance on the show? So, Arn, first, did they have a whole black tie party and all that? And were you a part of it that you can recall?
Not so much, because it was mostly for office personnel, and I was not there yet. But everyone was decked out and dressed up out backstage, and it was a big deal, you know.
None other than a big deal than seeing Andre the Giant be a part of it. How cool was it to see him there?
Well, it's always an honor to be in the room with the Giant, because you got to understand what he contributed to the business, and at what personal peril, just trying to get in a seat, you know, in a rent-a-car, trying to get in a seat on an airplane, you know, all the things, traveling and all the issues that, you know, went with that. Life was not easy for Andre, and he was a bona fide giant. And the fact that he worked so hard and always had a smile on his face, and especially before his back got bad, he was always pleasant to be around. And I can only imagine after his back started ailing and how difficult it was. And yeah, just to see him walk by, and you're sitting there going, my God, he is really a giant. And you look around and there goes Hank Aaron, and you go, my God, that's Hank Aaron. It's just, you know, if you're a sports fan, you've got to understand what being Hank Aaron means to baseball.
Yeah. It's big time. And too, as a fan, like at my age at this point, I'm always thinking Andre WWF and Andre that. So then they do a nice job of showing, no, Andre also wrestled in territory, was a part of TBS wrestling here and there. And so it was a huge get, if you will, to have Andre show up and be a part of that. So really great to see him a part of it.